our speaker, Adrian Jones. And so I'm really proud to be a part of the program. We have funded 600 internships across the state of Maryland since August of 2018. And joining me today are some of our MTIP employers and people who have been great partners to the MTIP program. So without further ado, I would like to hand it over to Richard Kleidman, who will give his overview of the work he does.
Thank you, Annie. So I'm the COO of AirPhoton. We're a small company. We've been around since 2012. We design, manufacture, and sell instruments that measure particulates in the air. This is of interest to people who study climate. It's of interest to people who study human health. And from the very beginning, we've really incorporated students into what we do. And I am very thankful to the MTIP program because it really is a give and take. We really do get valuable input, valuable production from our students, and I think they learn a lot from being with us. So I think people should stay tuned in and learn about the program. So thanks.
Great. Moving right along, Pramod, just below Richard.
Yeah, hey, my name is Pramod, Raheja, Mode for short. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Airgility. We're a spin out of the University of Maryland 3 years ago, and we have very, very highly relied on internship talent to help grow our company. It's a big part of our culture. This past year, we've hired our first full-time hire, so we're still an early stage tech company, and we've worked now with Maryland Tech Internship Program here for this past semester and also for this summer. And it's been great, and I'm happy to share specific stories as we get into it with Alex's Q&A. Nice to meet everybody, and I'm available, for follow-up if anybody wants to reach out to me as well. Thank you.
Hi, James. You're on mute again.
I'm never usually that guy. I'm very sorry. Hi, everybody. My name is James Collins. I am a program manager at Index Analytics LLC. We are a small minority-owned data analytics and business intelligence contractor, primarily focused in the healthcare IT space. One of our main clients is CMS, the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services. And I touched base with Annie and the MTIP program about a year ago, I think, is when we started to connect. And as Richard was saying, interns are a very, very valuable part of our culture, and it is very much a give and take. We also try to make sure that it's a very mutually beneficial back and forth between the two of us. And our ultimate goal is to, once upon graduation, is to bring some of these interns on board for as full-time employees. And I think we've successfully interned about 100 interns, I think, since we've begun. Not all of them have stayed on board full-time. Some of them have had responsibilities elsewhere, but a good bit of those have been turned into full-time employees. So we're very thankful to the program, and please feel free to connect with me, and I'll help answer any questions I can. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. And last but not least.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ajay Gupta, CEO of HSR.health. We're really what's called a geopop health company. We've developed a geospatial analytics solution to analyze social determinants in healthcare cost and outcomes data to help hospital systems, insurance companies, and regulators make decisions on things as broad as how to outreach to patients who are at high risk of various healthcare challenges like the opioid epidemic or currently pandemic, right? So as a technical healthcare company, we do use a lot of interns. We've received a lot of value out of our interns. I was an intern myself once before starting the company several years ago. So we really enjoy having the energy and the access to new technology and new ideas that interns bring our company. Thank you. I'm looking forward to being part of today's conversation.
Thank you so much for that. And thanks everybody for those great introductions. I guess jumping right in, one of my first questions would be really just kind of set the stage and lay some groundwork. Can you guys talk a little bit about hiring challenges that you had maybe before finding the internship program? And also, is there anything unique that you're doing in the recruitment process for both new hires and interns?
Alex, did you just want to, oh, go ahead, Ajay, sorry.
No, well, I'll go for 30 seconds, Pramod, and then you jump in. But are we doing anything new? I'm certainly not doing anything new. Hiring has been, and I think we all know it's a challenge. It's hard to find the right kind of people, the right kind of skill sets. What I like out of this program, especially working with Annie in this program, is that it does give us access to motivated and dedicated students at the college level and graduate level who are interested in learning new things and expanding themselves in their career of choice. So that does help find the right kinds of people to bring aboard. The fact that we can do that through a paid internship versus an unpaid internship is also really helpful. But hiring challenges and finding exactly the right person for the role that we have, especially since our company is a little bit of a unique kind of a value proposition, simply does remain a challenge.
Yeah, I'll just add, so as I mentioned at the beginning, I didn't actually say what we did. We actually do unmanned systems and artificial intelligence and around that and autonomous systems. So is it just at a broad level? But, I think with this specific technology internship program, first of all, I'll make a broad statement that in this country, there's a big focus on STEM careers, right? And I really think that something like MTIP really helps foster that, because an early stage company like ours, just to Ajay's point, when you're early on, you're very selective about how many people you can bring in. Money is an issue. By having some of the subsidies to help offset some of that, it allows you to bring in more people, which then just creates more opportunity, both for your company to grow, but also for the individuals that are getting the internships to have an opportunity to have the internship. And I'll sort of add to what James said earlier. Yeah, we now have kind of an inflow of people that want to come work with us. So in terms of the recruiting, I'd say while we, like any company, have recruiting efforts, we have a strong inflow, so we get to be selective as well.
So I'll take a turn here. One of the challenges for us generally, both giving the interns a good experience as well as hiring them, is to make sure that we have sufficient manpower to work properly with the interns. And that falls mostly to our production manager. So if he doesn't have the time, we can't really onboard anyone. So we have to make sure we're not overwhelming him or our other staff. One problem we do have with staffing, which is maybe a little bit different than everyone else, we're not entirely a tech company. We do manufacturing. So now and again, we look for people who have skills, say with CNC machines and things of that sort. And the community colleges, I think CCBC, have programs like that, but we have not been very successful finding and or placing graduates of those programs.
I was also just going to jump in and add that Pramod is located near University of Maryland, College Park. Index Analytics and AirPhoton are out of BW Tech. And so I think proximity to higher education institutions, it's a great pipeline. I would encourage everyone to check out Career Center's websites right now. Tomorrow we have the Maryland Career Consortium virtual career fair with 2,000 students registered. Are they going to be the exact fit for your needs? Probably no, maybe not. But I do think showing up and being present at events like that are so important to, wonderful. So HSR.health also has close proximity. I thought AJ was in Rockville only, but he's near the University of Shady Grove, which is a powerhouse of talent, in my opinion. So don't forget to check in with your 2-year and 4-year institutions. MTIP is open to any 2-year or 4-year institution in Maryland, private or public, and alumni. Sorry.
And if I can kind of just piggyback off of that, what I think really helped us get the initial pipeline of interns that were coming on was that our CEO, before we moved into our office, which is still very much near the UMBC campus, we were actually centered in the Career Center. We had like I don't think it was 5-person office when we first started. So I think some of the name recognition started out of there, exactly like you just said. And I think that very much helped us with that initial pipeline and kind of getting the word out. So yeah, wholeheartedly agree with you.
Okay. So here's the big question I think that's on everyone's mind, and I'm thinking a lot about, and really excited to hear you guys, you all speak to this. COVID, how are you adapting? How are you getting creative? Share with us what your internship is going to look like from a virtual standpoint, I assume, this summer, because I've been really interested to have conversations with a number of organizations, all different sizes, and some really big organizations that have just said, you know what, we're scrapping the whole thing. No summer internship program, and just kind of walked away, which kind of a bummer. So like, I'm really interested, to hear from folks that are saying, no, we're in this, and we're going to get creative here, and we're going to shift. And like, what's that look like? How are you doing that?
Alex, I'll start if it's okay. Yeah, so I think that what you just said actually was what they did, those other companies that scrapped their internship programs, was a big win for us, because we've gotten a number of interns that are part of, either we've gotten directly or they are part of other programs that the state of Maryland or University of Maryland has, where they had things lined up, or maybe they didn't have things lined up, and then when COVID hit, they were just left scrambling. And we took advantage of some of those situations where we have a number of interns working on different initiatives, from technology, like we're doing here with MTIP, to business and operations as well. And many of these students are very, very talented, and are, the big thing being quick learners, and are able to pick up on things and then contribute right away, but also learn at the same time. So I'd say for us, we were always set up to be a company that, even though we do hardware as well, we have to be in person for something. We set up our company with all the tools and techniques that you could work remotely as well. So we have, a number of our students. In fact, one of our students, Jake, who worked with us on digital marketing, I had never met him in person for the last 3 months. I hired him in March, and we just met him for the first time in person yesterday, when we started just slowly coming back into the office in the last couple of weeks. So we're set up that way. We have another intern from Maryland that's sitting in New Jersey at his home, and he's doing kind of more sales type stuff for us. And, it just hasn't been a big deal. We've got Zoom, we've got Slack, we've got all the right tools.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I can step in here also. We were also kind of set up as a remote internship beforehand as well, before COVID hit. So it hasn't been a huge adjustment for us. The majority of our interns are what we call our data interns. And what we've done is, as I mentioned before, I've mentioned mutual beneficial relationship before. We've almost kind of designed a curriculum for them. So the intent of our data internship is for them to work on a curriculum based around their schedule, because we know that they're still in school and they have things going on, or they have summer plans, whatever the case may be. So they can kind of set their own schedule, and we're completely okay with that as long as the work gets done. And at the end of the curriculum, the intention is that they would end up getting a certification. In this sense, we're using this semester, or actually, I'm sorry, last semester we used a tool called ClickSense. It's a data visualization tool. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. And that was a big plus to some of the interns that applied too, because that was a resume builder for them. and having the internship be remote before hasn't been a big adjustment. Now we also have some office interns who were set up to work on location. That's been a bit more of an adjustment, but we're only talking about 3 or 4 of those. And we've had them do some kind of more analytical assignments, helping out some of the project managers instead. And it's actually been a very smooth transition.
Yeah, in our case, and I think this is probably true for everyone, it really hasn't been a transition just for us, right? So the entire economy, really the whole world has gone to this. So all of our neighbors and friends and everyone has been doing the same thing. So there's some camaraderie that happens there that has been helpful. But it is certainly a challenge to work with people that we haven't met. We have right now 3 interns that we have never met. And nobody in the company has met any of these interns, and they haven't met any of us. So that's a challenge. It's odd. It's not usual. We are working through Zoom and through Uber Conference and all of these other platforms as best we can, and they are being productive. I hope that they are learning something out of it, right? Ultimately, an internship is an educational experience, so we hope that they're learning something. I'm just not necessarily certain that we could quantify or even qualify what and how much they may be getting out of it, but we're trying to do the best we can.
That's all we can do, yeah.
So like everyone else, we're also living in the virtual world. We also have interns we've never met, employees we've never met in person. Because a lot of the work we do is virtual, but some of the work does require having some hardware. So for instance, we have people who are writing software and firmware for us that interacts with our instruments. So they've come in maybe one time to pick up the equipment they need. And we're small and we stay very spread out. If we ever ask anyone to come in, it's completely voluntary. We never require that. I think in general, especially now that we're living in the virtual world, when you choose your interns, you have to choose some of those who are, you have to make sure that there's a degree of self-motivation there. You know, just to look at GPA is not going to tell you by far everything you need to know. So you need to find someone who is a bit of a self-starter, and that really helps in the virtual world and environment.
Mm.
And
Annie,
oh, sorry.
No, go. You want to tackle that, but I actually have a question specifically for you. I'm interested in what else you're hearing and from other organizations, and also are you experiencing, you know, a drop off in any regard where companies are saying, you know, like, this is a great program, but, you know, given the current situation, we just don't feel like we're in a position.
No.
Good.
I thought that was going to happen. I was nervous. Christine, who's the director, Christine Browson's the director of the Career Center, and also kind of this is her brainchild and this program. And we were worried. We were concerned. I was worried people were going to say, I can't have interns this summer. I only had about 3 or 4 companies drop off, but I had so many applications. And so I was able to tap into that. But I wanted to just touch on what everyone already said, which is, you know, students also want that sense of connection. We talked about it on our pre-panel call. And I think a lot of times the Gen Zers and the millennials get mixed up as, no, they just want to be online all day and they don't want to see you. And I think that's wrong. I definitely think that that's maybe something we've learned out of this. And so a lot of employers have asked, how can I still mentor them? How can I make sure they're learning about culture and office politics and how to navigate? And so I think there are creative ways to include them. And so I did a webinar in early June that I can share out to all the attendees if Alex is willing. But it basically goes through how to onboard. There's so many things to think about. If you're a cyber company, there's security issues. There's so much to think about. So it's not as easy as just saying like, sure, we're going virtual. It is a big, it's a big undertaking. And so as everyone's already said, you want to make sure you have the manpower. but the other thing, the last thing I wanted to say is kind of making it fun and you know, getting to know these people. So I appreciate that you're starting to have some in-person meetings, and also maybe there's, you know, we had talked about a long time ago with another employer, they were gonna do all of their like prom dresses on a, like what they looked like at their prom on a Friday afternoon, like just for fun or whatever, like to build camaraderie and talk about that. So I just thought that was like a funny, unique way. It's a small public health company, and I just thought that was a really unique way to get to know people and to talk about the times, you know, because there was, you know, it's a way to kind of build and still have fun.
Yes, I love that, and I want to hold there on kind of the fun part and the culture part, because that's definitely the next point I want to get to, and I'm really curious to hear from you all in that regard. But before we do, we have a question from Ashley and Annie. I think you spoke just a little bit about this, but I'd love to hear from everyone your thoughts in regards to onboarding interns virtually. You know, any additional steps that you took that you felt you needed to take, or maybe you took and you're like, oh, that was a little excessive, didn't really need to do that, or any additional, you know, background screening, security checks that you needed to consider or implement, like, you know, what's the consensus there? Feel free to cut me off and jump in anytime, anybody.
We really didn't find a need for additional security screening. You know, we look at transcripts, we look at recommendations from you know, past employers. We've had to be more serious about background and security checks when we're hiring non-students than when we're hiring students.
Yeah, we're also not doing anything new. Obviously, the in-person interview is not happening right now, so I suppose we're doing something less, but we're just relying more than we did in the past on recommendations.
For us, a lot of our hires are also warm referrals. So, you know, there's already that, with the warm referral being somewhat vetted through another source. So that nothing's really, to answer your question, Alex, not a whole lot of change really. Again, if you're set up to onboard and hire and onboard, you probably set it up through some software and through some online process anyways. So, you know, yeah, we just kind of followed that.
Okay. And I think coming back to Annie's other point that you touched on, and we're certainly curious to hear about, and I'm just fascinated how we actually do this in, I hate to use the term, the new normal. How are you all instilling a sense of culture for interns, for them to really get to know and understand what it's like to be part of your team, part of your organization? Is that something that is relevant for you in the internship experience before all of this? And is it translating into the virtual world? And I guess what I'm looking for here is, you know, I expect it's very important, but I want to hear from you guys, and how are you executing, you know, and trying to get that across virtually?
So if I'll take this, I'll field this one. So I know that one of the ways that we have always tried to, not just during this, you know, to use the new normal phrase, we've always tried to include our interns on our different events that we have, whether it be a holiday party or picnics or catering, whatever the case may be. So while these are remote interns, for example, because some of these are remote interns, we actually try about once a quarter to meet up with them for lunch based on their schedule. They're invited to all of our corporate events. We don't separate the employees from the interns. And we do invite them into the office whenever, whenever they are able to join us in some of the activities that we participate in from a culture standpoint.
And I'll jump in next. For us. We do I mean, not really. I think that we want some takeaways here, right? So we do a once a week all hands. Right now, it's every Friday morning, and typically that's an opportunity to share what's happened in the past week, what's coming up in the next week, and because there's different things going on within the company. There's people working on engineering, some working on marketing, and maybe a couple different lines of effort within those. Everybody gets to kind of get on the same page in an hour. And in that hour, we do a Zoom call just like this. Everybody's on. And we actually also will do some icebreaker questions so we get to know everybody, whether it's what TV show are you binging on right now or whatever. And so that way we get to know everybody. And that's been working really well. We also will do in that same hour, we'll do a little learning where we might look at another company. Like, for example, we might look at Amazon and say, hey, what are they doing that we could maybe potentially use within our company to make sure that we're all rowing in the same direction, we're all aligned. And now we're kind of, I'd say, morphing that into even a dashboard where we share, where here's all the different things going on within the company. There's nothing there's no IP that's shared there. It's kind of all high level stuff in terms of here's what's going on. Maybe you can help, and people get an idea of where they're stuck on things. And so it's a great way to get everybody, including the interns, on board with respect to what's happening in the company.
So for us, we're very small. The three partners have known each other for forever. We've had our production manager with us since inception 8 years ago. One of our other employees is his wife. So I don't know that we have really a corporate culture. We have kind of a family culture, really. I have to say we haven't maybe done a great job of onboarding the interns into that. But as we are fond of saying, our company was founded by three nerdy scientists who are trying to figure out and negotiate the world of business with more and less success. And I think kind of our slightly goofy, nerdy personalities come through, which fits in very well with the tech interns we tend to onboard.
Thank you for that, Richard. Yes.
Yeah, for us, it's been a mixed bag, honestly. We value culture. We do think that we want to have a good culture. We want to have a culture. And I always believe of culture is just sort of what we do, how we do it. That's really what culture is. And conveying that when we're communicating by text message, phone calls, and Zoom has been a mixed bag. It doesn't always seem to translate. And we're just always trying to see what we can do to improve how we convey who and what we are, what we stand for, those kinds of things. And I'm also hoping that in the near future, we'll be able to get back together on a regular basis, right? Even if it's just quarterly, that'll go a long way to convey culture to a major extent, I think.
I'm curious, is there anything that you all have seen other companies doing around culture that you have stolen and said, hey, I like that, we're going to go do that now too? Or maybe not yet implemented, but is there anything that you've seen, heard other companies doing that you thought that's pretty cool? I would like to see us incorporate something like that. There's a local company here in Baltimore. I think it's a weekly Tai Chi workout that they have, or it's an option for everyone to get together and partake in, which it raised my eyebrow. I was like, that's cool. That's something different. Anything that you all are seeing that you thought, that's pretty cool. I could see us maybe trying something like that.
So our leadership team does yoga classes on the beach on a fairly regular basis, whenever we can get together and get on a beach. Right. But which is just hard, right? I mean, we can't always be at a beach doing yoga classes. However, that's part of, I guess, that's part of our culture. When we're together in the real world near a beach, we do yoga. Everybody knows that. It's just, you know, the last time we did it, it was just a couple weeks ago. I mean, it's been a while. But those kinds of things, and, you know, hearing what other people do and stealing them is great, except that I think the culture has to be what we would do. So it has to be sort of an idea that germinates from us, from whoever we are. And then try to inoculate that and do that everywhere. And that will be helpful, I think. I do notice that when employees or interns or whoever they are get a sense of our culture, of the kind of firm we want to be, their productivity rises. I don't even think they know or notice it or know why, but their productivity does rise when you're associated, when your culture and the culture of the organization you're with are in sync.
Very well said.
And I'll add to that.
I'm sorry.
Sorry. Go ahead, Annie, if you'd like.
I was just going to say, I'm going to throw it back on Alex. So technically does a lot of events, and I know that they are missing connecting with the community right now. And I think it was last week or the week before, Stephen Babcock and Alex did a trivia, and I'm stealing that for a virtual fair that we are thinking about doing in January in partnership with Baltimore College Town Network. And I just think like it's about getting people excited and energized. And I think when you're working from home, whatever that looks like, it can be, there's no work-life balance anymore, right? There's not a lot of fun anymore. There's no hallway chatter. There's no connection with people. It's just you and your computer. And so for me, having these kind of fun yoga on the beach, the prom dress thing, the trivia around tech in Baltimore, I mean, those are the type of things, although they seem very surface, can really make people feel part of a team and have an experience that they will reflect fondly about.
Well, Stephen Babcock just chimed in and sent me a note, and he said, if we can contribute, if you need any technically trivia, we're here, we're available. But yes, love that. Please steal it, run with it.
Alex, you mentioned like what are we doing? And I think you targeted that question to with the new normal, right? And is there anything that we've seen that we could use? Certainly getting together in person, of course, that, you know, that's going to lead to, you know, the kind of culture you want, doing activity, whether it's yoga or paintball or what have you. But specifically here, I'll give you a book recommendation. It's called, and it was written in 2013, but it applies to 2020, I think, much more. It's called The Year Without Pants. It's written by Scott Birkin, who was a Microsoft executive, and he went to work for a company called Automatic for a year, and he wrote a book about it. And if you're not familiar with the company Automatic, pay attention. It's a stock tip too. They're going to go public in the next year, I think, and I think they're going to blow it out of the water. But I'm not an investment advisor, so that's my disclaimer. Don't listen to me about that. But what's unique about this book is the culture of Automatic. And if again, Automatic is the parent company of WordPress. WordPress has 90% or more of the websites on the web right now. And so he wrote a book about their culture. And the reason it was so fascinating is they all work from home. It's 100% remote company. I think at this point, several thousand employees, and they have pods, as they call them, and they break their company up into pods. They all get together once a quarter, each of those pods, and then once a year, the entire company comes together for a big, you know, in-person thing. But the point of it is that they really have a culture that is a high-performing culture, completely remote. And so I think that's something I read years ago. It was written in 2013, and so I think it applies more than ever now. And so, you know, something that was written 7 years ago is almost like forecasting what we're doing now without pants.
Thank you for that. I wrote the title down. And I will also say, in regards to your stock tip, we want the largest audience here right now paying attention to our webinar, but hopefully everybody stepped aside to grab a glass of water and missed that. So it's just us that'll know about it. And I'll be taking action on that. Thank you. Yes. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Really curious in, you know, given the current situation and from a virtual standpoint, how are we, you know, living our values, right? How are we sharing that with not only our community, but, you know, our team internally and certainly, you know, new members. I think, you know, we all are passionate about what we do and you know, that is a big part of what we do and why we do it, within the organizations that we do it. So I'm just so fascinated how that translates in a virtual world, across the board. I want to kick this one back to Annie. Juliana has chimed in with a question. How is the mentorship component of an internship working out at 100% remote capacity? So,
yeah. So when all of this first came about, that was my question. I was like, is it going to be worth their time? Are they going to have the mentorship component? And so I did a lot of research. I tapped into a lot of different career centers around the country, and I just kind of tapped into my own network and talked to different employers, big and small. And two things that I think are important that I will get to Alex, and he can maybe email out broadly to the attendees of the session, is you want to have a remote work policy in place. So whether that means the work is asynchronous or not, but that there are some rules and boundaries. And I think that's really important. I also think establishing check-ins, a Monday check-in is great, and they don't have to be long, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I think assigning the intern with another person on the team. So a lot of people on this call are COOs, CEOs, and they don't have the time to meet with people multiple times a week, right? They're trying to make money and get things done. So really delegate and provide management opportunities to other people on your team. That's going to be really important. And then the other thing I would recommend doing, and I have a template for both a remote work policy and a learning plan, but a learning plan is not super long, but it holds the intern accountable for what and when they're going to get things done. And again, if that's you as the supervisor checking in with the student, or if you've handed a mentorship component off to another member of your team. If you're like AirPhoton and you have a small team, maybe that's just super transparent and everybody knows what the intern's working on, and that way the student is very accountable. But I think those kind of components are important. Including the intern when appropriate is something I always recommend. So even if it's a CS student who might be super shy and not interested in presenting, if they're interested in entrepreneurship, bringing them to a client meeting, probably pretty important, right? So I always encourage bringing students out of their comfort zone, and especially in the tech world, to do other things and to make them a more well-rounded candidate as they enter the workforce. That's the whole point of the internship.
James, I don't want to put you on the spot here, but I'm going to come to you first with this one. Thinking about, I think. I kind of lost my train of thought on that one, but I want to move in kind of a different direction now, and thinking about from a virtual standpoint, is there anything about the virtual internship that actually works better? Is there anything about having your interns virtually now that actually lends itself to even more success than, say a year ago?
Sure.
Because I think we spend so much time thinking about, thinking of this as a negative and how we're adapting, and but is there anything about it that's actually you found that it's like a silver lining that it's actually better?
Well, I'll start off by saying that from a benefit standpoint, being 100% virtual, I believe, helps the students work around their schedule, especially from a transportation standpoint. Some of these students are living on campus or in student housing right next to campus, whatever the case may have you. A lot of them don't have cars or outside of an Uber, outside of Uber. And as you know, when you're a student, money can be very tight. So I think that's an immediate benefit. I also think it helps them learn autonomy in the workplace a bit, almost kind of via a sink or swim method. I know one of the things that I started to do, and I forget, someone had mentioned this, but I started changing up my interview questions let me back up. So we just brought on board 20 new interns that just started June 1st. And we used to interview them, and it was all, they basically would read through their resume because it's an internship. This is one of the first jobs they've had, or the first job they've had. So they would typically read through their resume, and that's great. But I was really more interested in them personally from a self-starting standpoint. So I would ask questions of, I'm trying to dig into like who they are personally and what they do, what they enjoy doing. And I almost made my hiring decisions based on not so much their GPA or whatever the case may be, but how I thought they would work autonomously. And I think that that's a big opportunity for them because a lot more companies are going this route and they'll have this opportunity later in life. So it starts them off on the right foot. I hope that answered the question.
Oh, that was excellent. Yeah, very well said. And I love that it sounds like you're digging in on a deeper level from a slightly different angle based off of what they're really going to need to have to be able to be successful in this current environment.
That's right. Yeah. And some of that comes down to a gut feeling. I think all too often, a lot of interns that we get tend to be very, very nervous during the interview, which is completely understandable. And as we're conducting, Zoom interviews or Microsoft Team interviews, whatever the case may be, they have this tendency to read through their resume, like almost verbatim. And I very much try to get them off of that path because I wouldn't have called you if I didn't read through your resume already. And your GPA that's great. That got you kind of in the door, but I want to know who you are as a person and why are you looking for this internship and what do you want to bring to the table and how can we help you? How can we help you? And those are the kind of questions I ask now.
Love that. Ajay, I can tell you got something on your mind.
Thank you. But I think James is right that this has made working in an internship for many students, or at least the students that I've come across, just more convenient. It's just easier for them. They can commit more time, and in a lot of cases, they like having something to do during these times, right? So it's. I mean, I hate to say that it's almost been better, for the company's productivity because there's less distractions available to people, but that is actually a benefit. There simply are less distractions. I mean, if you look at it, a lot of TV shows aren't on right now because they can't film because of the pandemic. And so there's just less other things to do, whether that's school, entertainment, other jobs, whatever. And so staff are working. They're grateful to have something to do that occupies their time, that allows them to think and to contribute. And so that's been really a positive. I've also found that we are having these Zoom calls any time of day. It's not unusual that we're on the call at 10 o'clock at night, just because we're up, we're working, we have an idea, so we're working on something. And so that's also been interesting and not something that I necessarily anticipated when we went to remote work.
Pramod, we will talk stock tips again later, but your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think from a perspective, if you just look at broad statistics in general around just employment as a whole, more than money, people value some flexibility. They value some autonomy. I think Richard hit the point of, and James also hit the point of, can they work independently? Are they a self-starter? And I think that when people are happier and they have some flexibility in their life and their schedule, they are going to be more of a self-starter, more motivated to do things. And I've seen that even just with my own habits, and I've seen that with many, many other people's habits, that if you have a little flexibility within your life, you can do so much more. You can be so much more productive because you're happier because you're able to do things more on your schedule, if I can say that, right? I mean, obviously some of our schedules have constraints in them with meetings and things that happen at certain times of the day. But in general, if you can work around some of that and do something that you enjoy doing and working when you enjoy working, not everybody likes working early in the morning like I do. Some people like working late at night. When Ajay's doing his conference calls at 10 o'clock at night, I'm like winding down for bed. So, but yeah, I think just at a high level, even for internships right now that are more remote, I think people are enjoying the flexibility, and I definitely see all of my interns being very productive.
Yeah, I think a term I'm hearing a lot these days is doing less better, which I found kind of an interesting concept. Richard. You're muted.
But yeah, no, my space bar didn't want to unmute me. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'll agree with what the other panelists have said. One is a travel component. I know for myself, I'm working remotely, and you know, that extra time I have every day, it's an hour and a half I'm not spending in the car. I can choose when to work. I think everybody, regular employees, interns, appreciate that. I think it does require a little more regular monitoring, but not only regular monitoring, but the best mentors I've had in my life are those who give me time to learn, you know, and it's that doing less better idea that you brought up. This is an internship, you know, ask as many times as you need to ask. My own experience, I've worked many years in a field that I did not study. And I spent, you know, 10 years at NASA feeling stupid, you know, surrounded by all these really, really bright people trying to catch up. And yet my mentor gave me as much time as I needed to learn what to do. And I could go back and ask the questions I needed to ask again and again and again. So I think it's very important that virtually we find a way for the interns to also initiate communication. And I think a lot of us are doing that by making ourselves available at various hours.
Thank you. So I'm so impressed by organizations, by folks like you, and really all of us, right? You know, in the midst of a recession, a global pandemic, George Floyd, and socially where we are as a country here and now, and having to continually adapt. I mean, it's almost, you know, feels like on a daily basis. I'm curious to hear from you all, given the current situation, how are you adapting again collectively, you know, during this movement? Are you thinking differently about your internship program and the opportunities that you're providing for specifically people of color? What does that look like for you? What does that mean to you?
For us, you know, diversity and inclusion was a core value from day one. That's part of our fabric. A couple of years ago, I led an organization called the Entrepreneurs Organization, kind of as a nonprofit president for a year. And that was something we embraced that year, right? You know, as how do we be more diverse and inclusive in everything we do, in terms of positions, in terms of hiring, in terms of just about, you know, any aspect of the organization. I think for us, nothing's really changed other than just reinforcement of that we feel like this is the right thing to do. And honestly, from my experience in all of life, is that when you have a diverse group of people, you're going to make better decisions. You're going to be a stronger company. And I think the data would support that. You know, if we looked at data as well, and which we certainly could, and actually prove that point out.
Yeah, I agree with Pramod. I mean, just the more diverse the company is or the organization is, the more diverse the ideas are going to be. That's just the way it is. So I think we certainly try to make sure that there is diversity. I think our firm is pretty diverse, from our board down to our internship program, to everybody. It's a pretty diverse company. And what I like about internship companies is that you really cannot have a diverse workforce at any level in an organization unless there's opportunities at the levels below for people to build the skills, right? So an internship, and Annie has said this today a number of times, this is an opportunity for people to gain work skills within their industry or outside their industry, just to gain skills so they can succeed in the workplace and rise up to whatever level they want to, whether it's within a company or start their own. And so we really do want to make sure that we play some role in helping an internship program be successful to get as many people the skills they need to succeed in the workplace. And we see this a little bit differently than most companies. As a healthcare company, clearly one of the challenges in America is that because we don't necessarily have equal access to healthcare, that problem of health propagates through an entire individual's life, an entire community's life. So we really know that we really do have to address and solve, if you will, the diversity and inclusion problem if we're going to make changes and improvements in not just healthcare, but in society overall.
I'll just add to, so one of the reasons why MTIP was created was for opportunity and access, and to increase more opportunities for students across the region. I mean, it's not new news that there's a lack of diversity in tech. And I have a lot more work to do with MTIP all the time. It's a program that, you know, I'm continually trying to improve, but I am proud that we have 56% of the program are participants are people of color, which I think is really a pretty good statistic. I want to improve that. There are some areas after I did a little bit more of a deep dive, I kind of thought, you know, I want to improve this, I want to improve that, and what can I do to make it more accessible and equitable?
So, you know, again, we're small. We don't do a lot of hiring. We try to, we've always been diverse. Our CTO is Brazilian. Our original CEO, now our chief science officer, is a woman. We have interns of all colors, shapes, and size. We're not necessarily doing anything differently now than we've always done. Diversity has always been important to us. I did make an attempt about a year ago. There's an organization called NPower. And I think Annie even made the introduction. And this is a program specifically for, I guess, inner city youth who are coming through college age or finishing high school. And I really, really wanted to bring on an intern or two from that program. Unfortunately, that coincided with one of the times where AirPhoton was really struggling financially, so we couldn't follow through. You know, thankfully, we're doing better now, and I'd like to reapproach them and see if we could bring someone on, because it's not just the people of color that's the issue. It's the socioeconomic strata they're coming from, and you know, these are inner city youth who maybe don't have the same opportunities as those who are going to state universities. So that's important to us too.
Richard, I'll just jump in real quick. It's 4:56. I am sure Sid and Kendra from NPower are actually listening to this, watching this right now. So I expect by 5:03, your phone should be ringing. James.
I was just going to say, Sid's on the webinar, so.
Yeah. James, anything to add? Still on mute.
I was going to say, make sure I'm muted. So I've actually, it's funny that you mentioned NPower, because I believe I worked with Sid briefly as well. And we were it was between a semester, interviewed some candidates that I was very interested in bringing on board from the organization. And I've also had a very positive experience with them. I know one of the other things that our company does is, from a philanthropy standpoint, we have really tried to, and always have, but even more so now, have really tried to reach out to some of the underfunded, underdeveloped portions of our community. For example, one of the big programs that we're involved with is a program called Code in the Schools. Mm-hmm. And we'll go down to some elementary schools, some middle schools in the area, and our company works in a partnership with this Coding in the Schools, and we'll donate some tablets to the students and donate a day of our time to go down there and help them develop. There's an app on some of the tablets that teaches them some basic coding skills, so that if they develop into that, if they want to go into like a STEM career path or learning path as they get older, they can. And we've been really trying to do more of that and more outreach from our organization as well.
Thank you. Okay, we are down to, gosh, I could go for another hour. This has been really insightful, and I want to thank everyone. But we have about 2 minutes left. Pramod, I'm going to come back to you, and real quick, like 30 seconds, everybody, anything you want to leave us with, anything that you want to plug we didn't get to, please send us off.
All right. Trying to think of stuff to plug. I guess, you know, what I'll do is I'll just plug the Annie's program with MTIP that, you know, it's I'm glad it exists. I will plug the state of Maryland as well, because I think, you know, living in the DMV, there's always this battle of Maryland versus Virginia. And I think it's sort of, we should be all in this together, but it's not. It's sort of the way that people are incentivized. It's sort of a them versus us sort of mentality that I've seen. And I will say, being a Maryland, you know, originating business, even though we do business all over the place, that the state of Maryland has really some great programs for early stage companies. So if there are startups listening on this webinar, you should look into not only MTIP, but many other programs that exist from TEDCO on down, that really are there. And you may have to do a little digging, but if you kind of connect with some of us on the call, you'll probably get a little bit of a head start. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard.
I want to plug the MTIP program. They've been terrific. Annie has been really easy to work with. She's facilitated this for me. I am terrible. I shouldn't be a COO. I'm terrible when it comes to details and keeping track of paperwork and getting things in on time. And you know, no matter how many times they ask her, what do I have to do again? She never gets annoyed. But it is a great program. We've gotten a lot from working with the interns, and I hope that will continue. I also want to say I've really enjoyed meeting the other panelists today, and I hope we can form some kind of relationship and you know, somehow or other stay in touch.
Love that. Ajay.
Thanks. Yeah, it was a great experience. Thanks for including me, Annie and Alex. I'd just say this is a great program. It's great for us as employers. It's great for the students as interns. It's getting a shot, you know, starting their career. I'd say if we could all ask our representatives and the governor to double and triple this program, this is no better way to ensure that we keep in Maryland the students we educate and improve the tech economy going forward for generations.
Well said. James.
Well, I don't know. I can really add on to that. I agree with the sentiments of the other participants. I don't really have anything to plug other than Annie and her program, and I don't think I have anything to say that hasn't already been said. So thank you all. I very much appreciate the opportunity to speak today, and I've learned some very valuable insight as well, and I hope to connect with every one of you after the fact as well. So thank you all.
Thank you, James. And last but not least.
Yeah, I was like, when Pramod started talking about the resources, so just really quickly, I just want to plug the Maryland, the businessexpress.md.gov. If you're in the state of Maryland, there are a ton of funding resources, grants, opportunities for small businesses, mid-size, early stage, momentum funds that will help you. There's also programs like MTIP at other universities. So whether you're in Philly, whether you're in Delaware, connect with your local university 2-year or 4-year and dig around their website. So like Pramod said, it might take a little time, you know, it's kind of, you got to dig, but tap into those networks. They will help you. UMBC has a program called the Shattuck Program, which is geared towards small businesses and pays the intern directly. So it's kind of like MTIP, but it's a little different. And these are available for industries, whether you're in manufacturing, biotech, cyber, and I would love to triple the money. So if anybody wants to join me in Annapolis, I'm usually there for the entire month of February. Talking about equity and access, this year I tried to lower the GPA requirements to a 2.5 from a 3.0. Unfortunately, due to COVID, we did get some pushback, but anytime anybody wants to write testimony or come with me, the days are long and the outcomes are not always what we want, but I would love for any support. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to wrap us all up here, I will plug the MTIP program, of course. I think it makes me look really, really smart when I'm out in the community having conversations. And I say, hey, there's this thing that you don't know about. It's called the MTIP program. You should definitely check them out. And here's Annie's information. So that's a lot of the fun of what I get to do. And I will also plug technically our organization. Everyone knows us as a news organization, but there's actually a lot more that we do. And this is a big part of it, is looking to convene and connect the community in real and meaningful ways, create quality programming, hopefully such as this, you will all agree, hopefully. Lot of fun in bringing everyone together. And there's a number of other things that we do specifically on the business development side. So happy to help, happy to support in any way that we can. I want to thank you all again for joining us here today, especially the panelists, Annie for coming to us with this great idea,
Thank you all.
everyone that attended.
Thank you.
This is why the work that we do matters so much, and being able to get us all together locally and then be actionable based off of the information and these new connections that we're making. So my best to everyone, and again, thank you for joining us today. This concludes it. Thank you. Take care.
Thanks all. Bye-bye.
Enjoy your weekends.